Hello. Hello.
Hi,
Okay, Sajid, can you actually hear me and is everything clear?
I can hear you.
Okay, so once you're ready, just let me know.
একটা কিছু বলো তো।
Hello, hi.
আচ্ছা হ্যাঁ, আর আমার ব্লুটুথ হেডসেট বারবার ডিসকানেক্ট হয়ে যাচ্ছে, মানে হঠাৎ করে তোমার সাউন্ড আমি বাইরে থেকে পাচ্ছি। So, like,
Okay, but is
আবার
it
কানেক্ট করলাম। ওকে,
is it clear now?
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, ইটস ক্লিয়ার, আই এম রেডি।
Okay, great. So we have a couple of people. I actually know them all, which is great. So I'm just going to say hi to everybody, and hi Sajid for doing this with me. So it's amazing. Just for
আই
our
ক্যান সি ইউ
listeners,
দো।
you can't see me.
নো,
Wait
ইটস
one
ব্ল্যাক।
second. Wait. Maybe you have to get because I can see you actually. Can you
লেটস
end the? Can you
ক্লোজ
get
দিস।
out of the live and then I'm going to invite you again? Is that okay
ওকে
for
ওকে,
you?
শিওর শিওর
Okay,
শিওর।
so you need to get out and I'll just speak to other people. Hi, Ruth. Hi, Sharmeen. Hi, Mummy. Okay, so we have a small issue. I will connect with the guest again. Let's see. Ah, Ehsan, you can see both? Okay, perfect. Thanks. Okay, hi. Can you see me now?
For some reason I can't see you.
But
But
okay,
it's fine, I don't need to see you.
just imagine my face because you saw me a couple of minutes ago. But I can see you. Ehsan just confirmed that he can see you as well.
Yeah,
And
I saw his comment.
okay, so you can see at least some comments, right? Okay, great. Okay, hello,
Um,
hello everybody. Thank you for joining. And yeah, Sajid, thank you again for joining and for doing this. So I know Sajid for some time ago because we studied at the same university and we are in different parts of the world at the moment, but it's really nice that we are still connected. So thank you again. And Sajid has been, yeah, he was
help.
also working and studying basically in Australia, right, for a few years, and then he moved back
Yep.
to Bangladesh. So now he's home aboard, and today we are going to discuss a very important topic, which is still sort of a taboo, I would say, that talking about mental health in men. And we will be shedding more light upon depression and vulnerability. So, yeah, I'm really excited for this. So, to begin with, Sajid, this is something I've already told you before, but just for the viewers, why did you decide to do this? Why did you think about like, okay, this is it, I'm going to speak about something like depression or being vulnerable and things like that, you know?
Just a little background on this. My journey of mental health and awareness, self-awareness of this began around like 2013, 2014, 2015. Now, why then? Because I was seeing offshoots of like problem within me, but as it happens, we tend to ignore it. We tend to consider it some kind of weakness. So the primary reaction it comes as like, as they say in our culture, like, are you crazy? Like, have you gone crazy? Am I crazy? No, I'm not crazy. I don't need help. But at the same time, I was in BRAC, so in like many of my classmates, my batchmates, I see problems. Like, it felt like if I throw a stone in front of my BRAC campus, it will hit someone who's suffering seriously from mental illness. So I started like doing casual study on it. So like I'm going through online forums, I'm going through internet, I'm going through other people's personal experience. I'm trying to apply things that applies in my life. And and back in 2014, 2015, no, there was barely a credible mental health support institution in Bangladesh. None in the universities. And you used to remember, like, if you read Bengali newspapers in like Prothom Alo in Chutir Dine, there are like mental health support column of like Dhaka University Psychological Department professor like Mehtab Khanum. Mehtab Khanum is the only person I knew because she used to write in paper that she actually provides mental health support. But I knew people who went to the Dhaka University Psychology Department, took their counseling and got actually worse.
Oh, okay.
So so there was, I knew I needed help, but after many a struggle, many an issue, many ways trying to kind of fix it by myself, I knew that I couldn't do this by myself. But I also knew that going through wrong counseling support, or like what do they say? Like kind of there's a saying that the therapist and he is kind of, the first two sessions are kind of like dating. You kind of figure out each other that whether he is the right therapist for you. So a wrong therapist or like a wrong therapy session can set you back years. People are already reluctant going to therapy. So I
Yeah, but
took
Sajid,
another two.
I want to take a step back when you said that this was around 2013. So we're talking about something like 11 years ago, or and then
Yeah,
this was when we were in the university, right? So you realized
yeah.
it. So what were the things that I also come across on a daily life basis when I speak to other people, that a lot of times we are not aware of what is happening. So what made you feel that something is off, that you need help, and then you navigated towards the different support systems that you just mentioned, right? So what were
Main
those
thing,
key things that were happening differently for you?
the thing that uh, a little background, because my educational journey was not linear. I like I had to change institutions couple of few times. I graduated like 3 years later than my batchmate.
Mhm.
So there was like education related. I had an education related trauma or setback, if you can say. But I would never claim that I was a good student or like very studious person to begin with. But in school and college time, I had routine. I could function. I knew what I had to do. I could do that. But after those setbacks and in Bracken and previous universities, I suddenly found out that I couldn't really function like in like very simple things, normal things, maybe a small 10 minutes lesson or 10 minutes quiz or like a chapter would take 10 minutes for me to finish. I couldn't finish it. Even if I started it, and many times I couldn't even start it. I would like open my textbook and just stare at it and do nothing. And usually when this happens, and from your childhood indoctrination, you kind of think like you are lazy ass. Like, as our parents say, or like people in our culture, you are lazy, you are demotivated, you are procrastinating. I kind of figured like it's probably something like that. I'm probably being lazy, probably not being good to myself, or procrastinating or something like. But like people do things when it's deadline, right? The deadline induced panic is a real thing. But for me, sometimes it happens. Even deadline induced panic could not get me to start or finish my, uh, if you say it's study or like assignment or anything. I failed a couple of courses because I just couldn't. I wanted to do thesis. I took a pre-thesis course. I couldn't even submit my thesis topic in 1.5 months because I just couldn't find it within myself to start. I
Mhm.
I'd start researching for my topics, like do a 10 minutes internet search and then like, I'll just do something else because I couldn't get my brain to focus on one simple task that I had to do. So it kept going on for like one semester, two semester, three semester. I could have graduated 2 semesters earlier from Prague, but through this I had to retake this courses and that courses, which took me another year to finish my undergraduate. So from there, I realized, and also I also started getting panic attacks. It was unfrequent, but during my final year of my undergrad, I started getting panic attacks, and these are also related to educational issues and some personal issues. So by then, I knew that things have gone way beyond my control.
Mm.
And the usual, like the traditional advices that you find around places with friends but with people, they are like more harmful than you should, just do this, just follow this thing, you'll get better, this and that,
Yeah.
uh, so from my final year of my break, I started looking for therapists somewhere, and either you don't find a qualified therapist, or it happens that it's expensive. Mental health support in Bangladesh is still very, very, very extremely expensive. And also, I didn't I didn't have any money to go to avail counseling support. So I had to wait till I got a well-paying job to actually, start actually looking for someone who can provide me with actual professional help. So, so that journey from like 2014 to 2015, it took me to 2018 to actually professionally start going to therapy. So that's like 4 years of searching, waiting, talking to my batchmates, friends, what's their experience going to therapy was. Did it help? What were the pitfalls? Why didn't it help? Did you get better? Did you get worse? So after all, considering all this, going through online, like I basically the amount of research I did uh, to trying to find adequate mental health support in Bangladesh, if I put that effort in my actual studies, I probably would have gotten out 1 year earlier. So
Yeah.
that's
I
basically
mean,
my journey to this. Like, so why I want to talk about this,
mm,
because it's, even though it is hard accepting it at first, but it's also after you go through that initial acceptance phase that you actually need help, and then the rest of the steps are kind of, I found it easier. The initial acceptance bit was the toughest part, but you know what, you can't do this alone.
mhm,
Things have gone bad enough, and like also we are not supposed to, you know in search for being like responsible, mature, independent adults and successful professionals and academic and whatnot, we kind of forget the fact that we humans are not meant to do this alone. Like, if we consider, like, our species was like what, 200,000 years journey.
mhm,
Like, it's only in the last 50 years that professional development, or like work, or like, the nuclear family, the concept of nuclear family, or the concept of independent adult has gone traction. So like, not even like even 0.5% of our entire timeline of human species that we started doing this alone. We are not made to do this alone. We are not wired for it.
yeah.
So, like, this is what I want to focus on. That uh, what happens, like, I mean, you have probably, if you have looked around, the topic of male loneliness has been
Mm,
coming up in internet
yeah.
discussions quite a bit.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah. So this is another topic I was interested in. This is another reason I wanted to talk about it in this session. Kind of like,
Yeah.
let's shed some light on it.
Yeah. And I think it's amazing actually because the way you are actually explaining to me things, you're actually also being vulnerable at this point and trying to like open your heart and mind and soul for the world to see. And that is really, really commendable because um, I have I have been in contact with many people just like you that I remember when we last spoke, it was probably 2020, our first discussion about mental health when I was also struggling. So I don't remember a lot of it, but I know that you were there and we called and we had a talk and you were very open about your situation as well. And I think back then you were in Australia, I guess. So, um, and from there also just a few minutes ago before our session I also told you that you are so chill with about talking about it, and this is not so common, and that's the reason why I also wanted to emphasize about today's topic, because like you said about men's certain expectations that we have from men, that they need to be, I don't know, I mean, the world is changing, things are changing around us, but we still look upon like, okay, this this person is probably the head of the house. Like you look up to your father, or you look up to your grandfather, your husband, partner, or whatever. And then this is how we have also put a pressure on on this counterpart of ours, right? So I also feel that that's also create a lot of these things. But it's kudos to you that you realize that, okay, there are certain patterns that we're following up. And you, like you just said, and it's actually the key message also for me, that we are not meant to be dealing with this alone. If you are facing a certain problem, it doesn't mean that you yourself will find the solution of it all. There are professionals, there are support systems, there are other people that you can maybe talk about, brainstorm things together, and look for a solution together. So you're not supposed to be to just be alone in a box and think about it and suffer all alone. So that, I think it's great that you realized about it and then you took the steps forward. But then I was just thinking, because you shed light upon the situation in Bangladesh, and I'm not there for many years, so I do not know more than what I'm listening from you, that it took you 4 years to find somebody that you could actually open up with, or you could rely, and you had to do a lot of research. And so if you could give a little bit of, I mean, I know how it works in the Western world, I know how it works, for instance, in the parts of the country where I am living now, or I have lived before, but I do not know more about Bangladesh. So that would be nice if you also give me some idea, and also for the audience, like how does it work there, and how can somebody who is also struggling and who already knows the symptoms. So first thing is, of course, you talked about acceptance. Once you've accepted it, you know that you need some help, and then you look for it, right? But if there is another person, you would try to just give your advice or your two bits on it, who doesn't have to hopefully wait for 4 years, because you went through that path. So how is the situation now?
In terms of accident, I have a couple of friends and people who are going to therapy right now, who's looking for therapy. But the thing is, the first bit of acceptance, sometimes you have close friends or people that you kind of know that they need help, and you kind of know that you cannot help them. You kind of know that they kind of need to go to the professional setup, but they still can say it. But it's also a case that you can't really make them say it. There are some things you can't make someone go to therapy. It's not a thing. It's like just go once, you'll find it helpful, or it will be easier. It doesn't happen like that. So that kind of, I wouldn't say rock bottom. Rock bottom. It's a specific area, but that internal mentality, the internal acceptance that what, it's time, that has to come from within. So that bit they have to do it by themselves. You can only be a kind of like a support. I mean, you can only be kind of someone who is there to support, but not kind of uh, overtly influence it. And now in case of Bangladesh, uh, I think there has been a lot more talk and like promoting about mental health and mental health support in social media. There are some pretty like social media famous institutes. I wouldn't want to take the name there because I don't really like them, but it's there. It's there on social media. If they want to look for it, they can look to the social media posts. But also major hospitals have started their own mental health support. Some are like almost women specific, some who are like very like for specific cases, trauma or something like that. Dhaka Varsity is still there, and like I think major hospitals have started their own mental health support unit, and beyond that, there are like individual practitioners. They're kind of, you only kind of know about them through friends or friends of friends. Like you kind of have to go through your peers, and beyond that, there are like some reputed institutes here in like Lujan Bonani area who kind of provide a broad range support for mental health, through which I am kind of now I am kind of doing my own counseling there. But the fact remains that most of the cases it's still pretty expensive if you consider per session cost, and depending on the severity of the problem, sometimes you have to go twice a month or even like once every week. So it's like 4 times a month. With the per session cost, it becomes very costly for someone unless you have a decent paying job and don't have much other responsibilities of like families or like kids and stuff. It becomes very hard if you have like severe problems uh, to go like twice a month or like more than twice a month. Probably even in most cases, even for me, going more than once a month would be kind of unsustainable at this point. I I've been going to therapy for the last 2 or 3 months. I went there like twice a month, but for now I'm considering going doing like a session once a month because it's still on the more expensive side. So that bit has still not improved, but there are like actually there are more options. There are like so you don't have to like if someone lives in Mohammadpur, they don't have to come to Gulshan or Bolani or like Bosundhara to avail mental health. So there are decent institutions in like Dhanmondi. So like major urban areas in Dhaka have mental health practitioners. So for that bit, it has improved, but yeah, the expense is still a concern.
Yeah, okay. But I mean, it's
I
good
think
to know that
I
there are
also
places,
yeah,
right,
and
to go.
also I think yeah, there are places to go. Also, I think the universities, even private universities like BRAC and I can talk about BRAC. I'm not sure about North South or other, but BRAC has its own student counseling unit.
Okay.
Uh,
Mhm.
I don't think it's very popular or very well qualified, but probably for like kind of what do they say preliminary screening session, or like it would be better if students go through them for their first 2 sessions so that they can recommend them to an appropriate uh, and specific mental counselor.
Yeah. I mean, on one hand, it's good to know that there are support systems to go. So anybody who's living in and around Dhaka, so there are some options that Sajid just mentioned. So it's good to have a lookout. So it's not a complete dark tunnel. There is some light at the end of it. Although, like you also mentioned about the expenses, so it depends upon how it depends upon the financial feasibility, right, per person. But like you said, that you're also thinking about like whether you need to be go you should go or not, because it is really expensive, unfortunately. So in times when you are also like restricted because of the money issue, right, because it is an important compounding factor here, how do you then navigate towards the depressive episodes that you might get? And of course, it doesn't just come alone. I know it very well that it's always some anxiety attached to it, or etc., other things that can happen. How do you deal with this? And how I'm so I do not want to go too much in depth, but because we're talking about especially shedding light upon men, and we know the society factor just comes in very naturally, right? I would like to believe you have certain support systems that you could go out with and like you speak about it and stuff. But still, from really like a bird's eye view, and if you zoom out a bit, so how do you deal with it when you have certain situations? You cannot go to therapy every other day, and you still have to be the man of the society or your home or whoever, wherever you're going. And so I feel like you are then restricted. You cannot be vulnerable at the situation, right? So how do you balance? Can you be vulnerable and be depressed, or be feelings what you're feeling, anxious at the same time? And how do you open up to the society? Of course, it's a big question mark, but how do you deal it from your point of view?
Uh, it now the one of the other major issues that happens during our age, it becomes that after you're 30, most of your peers are married or like with their own family, they have own their families and kids. It's it's kind of, you kind of have to do a strategy session. Like for a group meetup, you kind of have to do a strategy session. Where so it's very hard to, uh, in those scenarios, kind of find friends. But in that case, it kind of becomes in every, in terms of counseling support, every session you kind of do maximizing work. So from my end, what I did was like, uh, one of the few things that I explored was like the coping tools.
Okay.
So, mm, so what can you, depending on the severity of the episodes, what can I do? What can I do to minimize it? What are the like general coping situation ability in terms of where are the stressors are coming from? Sometimes it can happen. The stressors are coming from your own family. In that case, it's very hard to, because in our culture we live with our family, so it's not like you can just avoid them or like cut them. It's not like you have troubles with your parents, you can just go back to your own home because you live with your parents.
Yeah.
Uh, so sometimes the stressors is your job, sometimes the stressors is like relationship or like friend or like money or something. So what basically happens is everyone's different. So for me, I devised my own coping ways to deal with my like when some first I kind of need to have like the first thing you need to do is to figure out what's happening and where is this coming from. Sometimes you're just angry. Sometimes you just haven't slept right.
Mm-hmm.
But not necessarily it's a depressive result. But but it's there. For me, my mind won't ever kind of go away. The thing that I have to live with it like forever. It's just managing it. So when it comes, it kind of becomes imperative to recognize that what's happening, and like sometimes the thing that helps us to kind of step back from the things that's troubling something. Even so, if it's having for me, I'm kind of lucky. I live in a separate place from my parents. So like if I have trouble with parents, I can just go back to my own place. But even the time, even when I'm living with parents, so like kind of do a separation, as much separation as possible. Go to your room, or like if you're having arguments with your parents, just go to your room, probably shut the door, and like you know, physical separation is one of the key ways to you deal with your stressor. Even if it's a job, sometimes job related stressors, you have to either go through it or like you take a, even if you can take a sick day, just disconnect from your work. If it's, and like in most cases in our life, one of the key areas of depression and like vulnerability happens through our relationships, right? And have I have gone through that. I'm pretty sure you know about it. But like what happens is, because I have been reading about this for a long while. I was research about it for a long while. I have kind of developed ways to disassociate with the situation. Like you kind of, what happens is like you kind of have to separate yourself from the actions that's happening. Like if you have, if you had an argument with your girlfriend or like boyfriend or wife or something, you kind of have to step back. Don't add fuel to the fire. Like don't reply argument with argument. You can kind of just, what I do is like I argue in writing. So what's the
Okay, cool.
what's what's the plus point in arguing in writing is you are not kind of have a physical separation. So means that physical body language, that aggressiveness of argument, you kind of take a separation from that. So you don't feel threatened, or you don't need to be defensive, or like you don't have to project that sense of aggressiveness onto your partner or even friendship thing.
I think
So you are,
I think
when you're
you yeah, you made a very good point. So I just wanted to just go in between because what you talked about is two things, right? One is that you you are very self-aware. That's what I understood for the last few minutes that we're talking with you. And then the thing is that you have your coping tools and you're using it, and you're using it to your favor. So for other people, just want to point out, it might feel like, okay, this person is selfish, that because he's taking him away from a scenario or going back to his own cocoon and not staying with the parents. But I think this is one of the ways, if it's working for you, to have a very clean boundary for yourself, and you are saying, no, this is what works for me. And then the second thing, like you said about being defensive, I think this is really common, because I can tell you from my own experience, I become very defensive, and I can
It's a
feel
very
that.
natural
But
human condition, right?
it
To
can
be
it can
very
create
defensive.
problems in your relationships, right? So I think this is also a good take home message, that if this is something that you are, again, it comes from self awareness. If you do know what is happening to you, and sometimes it's also very difficult to explain to another person or to yourself sometimes even, but then you know that you need to be secluded a bit, or you need to be on your own a little bit, and I think that is fine. So I have also, I have to say, learned this over the years, and I know that I have this tendency to be very defensive, and I don't know, I can just be, again, just like you said, verbally, or sorry, through text, I can also be very irritating towards the other person, and especially it comes out with the people that I love the most. So I am just being not nice to them. But now I have come up with the understanding that I tell them already that, look, I'm going through a certain phase, I'm not feeling okay, and maybe or maybe not, I want to share it with you at this point, but just be patient with me and don't be triggered because of my reactions to it, because sometimes I also don't have a control over it. But I'm going through some tough times. And I think a lot of times, I would say from my experience, 90% of the times, people understand and then they let you be. So it's, again, for anybody who will be listening to it later. So if the other person tells you that I want to be on my own, it doesn't mean that this is a very scary situation and this person is going to go do something
Like,
bad to themselves. It's
yeah,
not the
three
case,
things kind
right?
of happen. Yeah, like uh, we we naturally tend to take things very personally. Like something's happening to you, like let's say you and me and talking, and you're saying that, you know what, I can do this right now, or like something happened, or like, so like something's happened with you. It has nothing to do with me, but our tendency is to take things personally. Why is she not talking to me? Did I do something? Does she not like me? Or like, taking. And also we also have a tendency to, what I learned is not not disguise your statements in a very accusatory tone. Like whenever we have arguments with our close relationship, we tend to phrase our arguments in a very accusatory tone. Like, why did you do this? Why couldn't you tell me this? Or like, the tone. We all recognize the tone, the accusatory tone. I have learned to take a step. It's not perfect. I do this as things happen. Sometimes I'm just too frustrated. Sometimes I do it. But more often than not, I try to phrase my argument in a sense, please explain, rather than why did you do that? Like, or why couldn't you do it?
Mm,
It's like, you did this. Would you please tell me what was the rationale behind it? So rather than accusing them of something or the other,
mm,
phrase it in a way that they have chance to fully explain what went through their head when they did certain things. It kind of takes a lot of heat out of the problem. So it kind of also saves you from making premature irrational judgments, which is one of the very major causes of arguments, because we were prone to making snap judgments without having a lot of information. So just, let let people in general want to talk. People in general want to present their sides. Kind of let them, so help them express themselves, rather than coming in strong and hard. Like, tell me this, or why did this happen, or why did you do this or not. Also, I don't know, I tend to lose track of things.
it's
Uh,
okay. Just
yeah.
just 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 take your time.
So this is true, and also the last thing, like even even your close friends, like no one is obligated to share the time with you, like
Mm-hmm.
probably except parents or something. Like even for parents' case, like when you're adult, like uh, it's kind of sounds very harsh, sounds very mechanical, sounds very modern, but like you kind of have to realize that people have like at our age, everyone has their own life, everyone has their own issues. Things happen on the background that you don't know about.
Yeah.
So just because like someone's not giving you that time for the moment, it doesn't mean it has anything to do with you, or probably has they have their own, like they'll come back to you when they're able to. Now,
Mm-hmm.
with relationship, when it becomes a pattern, then you can think of like if there's actually something wrong or not. But in individual isolated cases, you kind of have to take a step back, not take things personally, and remember that and try to put yourself then in someone else's shoes. Like, you know what, if something like that happening to me, how would I kind of, how would I like to be behaved with? We
Yeah.
kind of forget to kind of consider this, like when we go in hard, but like I called you, why didn't you reply? Like, not like I wanted to see you, but you couldn't make time. But it can happen.
Yeah.
See if it's a pattern or not. But if it's not, just just chill, just
Yeah, I think
learn
that
to
is
take a step
also
back.
good. It's a good, yeah, it's a good tip for the people who are also dealing with friends or family or partners who have, who are going through some tough times. And it's not like maybe there are certain days that are always like this, or there are comes and goes in waves. And sometimes you have to let the other person be, or think, have some empathy, right? Just think of what the other person could be. But it is, anyways, again, it's difficult. As we are all human, we all make mistakes, we are all sometimes rush through. But what is important is also creating these boundaries that you just mentioned, that you feel like, okay, for me it works that I'm a bit, I find the stresses, I look for what is the stressor that is actually making me feel the way I'm feeling. So is it work? Is it, if it's work, if I can take a day off, I will do it. If it's home, if I have to talk to these people, I will do it. If I need some time alone, I will do it. And I think these are also very important, because when we grow up, and you also said that we are also, you kind of pointed in the beginning of our session that we are sort of in an autopilot, all of us, in somewhere or the other. We wake up, we go work, cook, come back. We have certain responsibilities, and more so over, because um like I also said a couple of times, that if these men are put in onto a pedestal and they're treated the way they're treated, at least from the culture we are coming from. And I know a lot of things are changing, but still, if you think about your father, or I think about my husband or whatever, and then we cannot imagine. I mean, I know I'm always like rooting for this equality and things, but if I cannot imagine my father crying, for example, because I would think that, oh my God, my world is going to shatter at that point, right? I've seen my mother crying many times, but if I put my father in that position, or if my brother is, I will feel more, because I think this is again how it has been engraved subconsciously or consciously since the beginning of our times. And I think then we should cut some slack and make it more easier also for everybody to coexist with all kind of problems. So whether you have a fever, or you have some body ache, or you're feeling depressed, or you are going through some other mental health disorders, so we need to cut slack in that aspect for both, right? But Sajid, I came for a I had a very I had a question actually, just
Yeah,
crossed my mind. So yesterday I was listening to a podcast, and then this ex person was saying that being vulnerable, because this comes in hand. And why am I putting this out there? Because a few weeks ago I ran a poll, if you are aware of it, that what should be our next topic, and we had a very close call between the vulnerability in men and the depression, of course, right? But we do talk, we there are a lot of, well, not a lot, but there is still news about depression every now and then that we hear. But this vulnerability is also a very interesting topic. So what I learned from the podcast, that men, again, this is again the experience of that person who was the guest, that they tend to be more vulnerable, not towards their own male counterparts, but more like the female. So it could be our, I don't know, friends or whatever, right? Do you also feel the same, that if you are feeling vulnerable at a position, right? Like maybe, okay, you're having a bad time, you're feeling depressed, you don't want to, but if you have to reach out to somebody, would it be really like, first thing would be, is it like a gender specific thing, is what I wanted to ask basically,
Uh,
that only this
uh,
gender you would approach and not the other one or something like this, you know?
well, coincidentally, it's the kind of the same for me. And like from my experience, it's been very hard. My first therapist was male. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
after going to him for 1 year and spending shitload of money, after going to Australia, I figured out that I haven't talked even half the things that I wanted to talk,
Okay.
actually sort it out. And kind of like I figured out like it's kind of very hard. Like I've gone through that in my own life, but I haven't really kind of thought about it back then. Now I can realize it's kind of hard for me to really open up to a male friend or like male close relationship. So it kind of happened like over the last 10 years or so, my probably through my entire university life, my closest confidants and friends are like all females.
Mm.
Like uh, one or two rare cases, they're like close male friends, but beyond that, like everyone is female. So if I went through some level of trauma, or like had to talk about something really personal, I would probably talk to. I would not probably. I'd definitely go to my female friends first, and and probably in most cases, my most male friends don't even know about it. Like
Okay.
we don't really. But because what happens is, from my personal experience, through our own culture, male friendship happens through activities rather than
So the
actually
emotional
talking.
bond. Mm. Okay.
So you do stuffs, you go to so like doing classes together, sports or like some debate club or this club or that club. So like you are friends because you spend it like you go through a common activity, common goal, you spend time through that, so you do stuff together. So my experience, very few male friendships that I have that involve doing nothing but just like having a discussion on things or this or that. It's mostly happens through you know work and activities and like hanging out, going to a trip and all that. You
But
don't
but did
you
you
don't
ever
you really.
try? Did you ever try to just talk about it? Because it's, I mean, I understand that this is, so basically what you're saying is exactly what the guest in this other podcast said, right? But why is this the question? This is also a question of Ehsan actually. He said, why is it difficult to approach male friends with such topics? Like, what do you think would be
Uh,
the reaction, let's perhaps, that you are thinking, no?
because from my end, like most of my male friends or the friends group that I have experienced, there was this. We are friends, we are close friends, we hang out together, but there was always a case of not a case of like who is the best among us or like something like this. There's always a case of push and pull, like and like sense of like in kind of an invisible competition, like who is doing this better, who has done this, who has watched the most movies, who knows the most stuffs, and like so it's always a factor of bantering, reading, and all that. And so the culture is kind of like that. So
Mm,
you sense there's a sense of competition. You can't be seen like weaker or like can't be seen as inferior in front of and with your kind of male friends or group. So like most like for my formative years, school or college or like first half of university, most of the male friendship was kind of like that. There was uh, you kind of invariably subconsciously compete with each other. Well, there is no reason. There's no reason to it actually. But kind of you grow up like that. You kind of when you grow up, society or like your parents teach you like that. Like see your friends got more marks, or like he can write poems. He does like he recites poems, or like So from your childhood, you are put in competition with your friends. And in our culture, you don't grow up with many female friends, right? So most of the times you're put into a competition with your male friends. So that things kind of stays inside your head. That even though your friends, they're also in competition for job or something or this or that. Uh, and we, because we don't get that much of although I went to school in a combined school, even then I didn't really have made any female friends. So most of my female friends, uh, friendship started happening when I was in college and like universities. So there was no aspect of like the sense of competition with my female friendship, right? So you
So
kind of,
yeah.
that sense of safety is kind of becomes inbuilt. So you feel more, uh, you, you feel that you can open up more to with them. And like from my experience, like and the fact that there is this inherent sense of competition within male peers group, there is a lot, there's a lot less of listening and more talking, like more
Mm.
one-upmanship with each other than like actually, I know it's mostly
Yeah,
banter, it's mostly kind of a fun, everyone's making fun of each other, but so there is no sense of aspect of kind of listening.
I think it's
So
very
from
interesting
my,
actually. I never thought about it in this direction, but I understood what you're saying, that of course, again, we go back to the roots of this whole issue is how you were engraved, like subconsciously, and then how you were compared to your fellow peers, which were mostly men at that time, like you said. So there's always more about action points, and then you are talking about like other activities you're doing. So there's no, and I think perhaps what you mean is that you're feeling judged if you are going to be talking about other issues, right? And then with your female friends, that you basically started to, now that you have more female friends, like you said, and that has happened in the later years of your life, and then you feel more safe, and then you could, and that could also be some of these biological differences that we have, of course, and then you are being more open to it. But we have another question. I don't know if you can see that, but it's about,
like,
maybe you want to take that question and
mm,
answer.
it's kind of very hard to say. Like obviously there's more information and there's more exposure to this type of relationship or like, so we
But the
didn't
newer
know what it
generation would
was.
mean what? I think it's about the Gen Zs. Are we talking about Yamini? Or I mean,
Yeah, God.
I mean, she
Like
is from the new generation.
even
I know. So
even if we talk about our own generation, there is more acceptance talking about it. Even in our own like university or college friend group, there are like there are more acceptance in being vulnerable. So so people kind of talk. People ask about like, hey, I probably looking for a therapist. Do you have any recommendation? Or like I'm going through this hardship or that. Do you have any suggestion on that? So I can see that even in our own generation, things have kind of started to change for the better, male to male friendship. Was even then, how it's probably won't be a case that people are actually very intimately helping them or like really supporting or listening them, but kind of even then, even kind of surface level understanding or compassion or like, you can go there. I heard they are good. Kind of helps every little thing, uh, helps. And yeah, as I was saying, yeah, I mean, even in our own generation, I can see an offshoots like what is it, bamboo shoots of like change that you can kind of start talking about problems, depression, or like vulnerability with each other. Maybe they won't be able to help, but they will at least, show some empathy, uh, kindness, and start kind of listening.
I think
And
I think if I can also add on to this, I think the newer generation, I feel like they are more aware. And I will count myself a little bit in that middle generation situation. And then I think people want to know more because it's not like under the sheet anymore. People know there is also social media everywhere. And people are willing to talk about it. It's just that some of us choose not to pay more heed to it, because we are always like scared. Oh my God, if we talk about mental health problems, it's like, oh my God, this person has a psychiatric disorder, or this person is crazy, you know. That's the first thing people from the older generation would think. But now if we talk about mental health, it's not about only problems that comes with it. It's about taking care. Like you spoke a lot about therapy, and then this is more about how you keep your sanity in place. And people also take therapy, for instance, just to be feel okay. And you know, you're going through, like we said, we are autopilot. You talked about different stressors, so we talked about work, we talked about relationships and other things. Everything can add to, so just to maintain that. So I think that the newer generation is probably more aware and then the older generation is
With new
catching
things.
up through us,
New
no,
generations
because we're talking about
are,
it.
yeah, newer generations are aware, but also at the same time, the newer generations have a whole different sets of problems. Like
Yeah,
they go, growing up in the 90s, we didn't have this level of distractions, or like the
true.
things, like we have very few things that pulled us in very different directions. Like we only had to think about two or three different things. With the advent of social media and like children as young as 12, 13 having their own social media accounts, I don't know why or how do
Mhm.
parents allow, like even at our own age, it becomes hard to sometimes deal with some aspects of social media.
True.
And giving 12, 13, 14 years olds their own social media accounts, they have on the one hand, they have more access to good information. On the other hand, they have more access to bad and harmful information.
Mm.
And at that age, you are not really mature enough to process all of it, right? So unless you have like direct guidance from elders or parents or stuff. So unless parents have a very strong relationship with their children, current Gen Z and stuff, I think they face a lot. The troubles that they're having to face a lot harder and more all-encompassing that we had to contend with growing up.
Yeah.
We're just kids who used to come, and we just come back home from school, watch TV, go play on the field, come back, study, sleep, and all that. That's basically our life was. Now they have to think about so many very different issues. So I think kind of they have access to good information. I see they talk about it more, but they also have more scope of being kind of, like when in school and
Distract.
college, when we had bullies or something, they're very localized. One class or something, their influence was very localized. Now your both positive and negative influence are not localized. They like cover a large area. Like they have a very large digital footprint. So I think there are areas to think and like observe about the current Gen Z and how they deal with stuff. I think they have a lot harder time of being teenagers than we ever did. So I don't really, I can't really say. I hope I hope they're doing well. I don't really
Yeah.
know. I have little cousins who are on Gen Z, but they don't really use social media. They're doing all right, but no, for a broader sense of generational thing, I can't really say. But I hope they have better support than we did, because
Yeah.
they have a lot
And
more
of
stress
course,
than we do.
with every generation, I think there is like a different set of problems that comes with it. So it's just to how would one navigate through, right? And of course, with the newer generation, there are more tools, and like you said, which also means there are more distractions. So you choose your poison. It's simple. If you want to limit yourself and see what is good, what is bad, and yeah. But I would like to also believe, just like you, that there are more hopes than it was back then, where there were no tools as such, right? But actually, we are coming towards the end of the session, and I didn't realize the time because it was that good. And we probably need another session to go more in depth. But I wanted to know, one last thing is, Sajid, we talked a lot about different things. So we touched upon of course, depression, vulnerability, and other issues in men, and how this male female um, this comparisons comes up when you are trying to be vulnerable. But what would be the three take home messages, or even four, if you could give to me, that I can take? Of course, I took a lot more from this session, but to summarize it up all for the audiences, or for whoever who is going to listen to this, later on.
I think every I wouldn't go through generalized message because not everything works for everyone. It's always very personal, and we kind of
Of
have
course.
to manage the tools and like modify the tools in your own way. For me, if I can have three common things that I try to do, like one is like taking a step back. Taking a step back always helps. You don't have to, there's this saying that winners never quit. That's some bullshit. The actual correct myth would be winners know when to quit. So even in many cases, like you kind of need to know when to step back from an argument, from a stressful situation, or from work. A work is giving you headaches. Just take a step back. Just take a break. A relationship is giving you headaches. Take a step back. You don't have to reply to everything. You don't have to have an answer to everything. Sometimes nothing is fine. Take a step back. Just get out of the situation. Do it however you can, like whatever tools available to you. But kind of taking a step back, I think it helps me. And the second thing is to, it's very similar to, it's like getting out of your own head. So I don't know if you've seen, I kind of shared an Instagram story like 2-3 days back, in a sense, like, there was like, some trauma dumping. They, don't trauma dump on your friends, and they're like the big quote on something that if my friend is going through trouble, I want to know, right? That Oscar Wilde quote, if you've seen that.
Yeah.
So it's basically sometimes when I am going through serious issues that I can't really being able to solve, I kind of find friends who are going through trouble and like, get in their own head. Sometimes, sometimes you get out. Sometimes it's very hard to get out of your own head and like just be blank or just be zen, because sometimes your problems are almost always overwhelming. One thing that helps me is like to trying to get out of my own head or my own issues is to kind of like worry about what's going on with my close friends' life, or sometimes trying to talk to them, trying to listen to their issues, trying to so kind of sense of comfort is like you're not the only one going through issues, but also, maybe in trying to support your friend or like a close partner or something, you may find something that works for you. Sometimes, it happens. We willy nilly give advices to people which we don't really follow. Very very common human thing. But sometimes, it happens. Like trying to help others may in turn help you somewhat, not fully, but give you some coping tools. And lastly is, as I began the session with, we aren't meant to do this alone. So maybe, although we're talking about male vulnerability, so it would always be beneficial to, if you have like specific male friends who, or like male guardians or something, you can talk about stuff of some specific male issues. But any good bit of, well, what happens is like when you are not, like when you close yourself to vulnerability, you close yourself to many possibilities that we don't really see when you're not very open or vulnerable, or we're trying to keep things in ourselves. Being vulnerable may hurt you in the short term, but or may actually hurt you even if you're vulnerable in the wrong places or the wrong time with the wrong person. But
Mm-hmm.
kind of it's a kind of being vulnerable to people. It's also a being vulnerable to yourself. So when you
Yeah.
open yourself up to that possibility, you kind of open yourself up to a lot more varied solutions, and like a lot more new perspective that then you'd be if you like if you weren't, but or like if you are very Peninsula. So like, uh, so there's this. I kind of share with many friends. I don't know if have you seen or read the book like The Little Prince?
No.
So it's kind of like a children's book, but the book resonates me very well. So a little child is going through a very fantasy situation. So he meets a kind of anthropomorphic fox, and they kind of start a friendship. And like she feels like the fox will leave, and so the child says like, "Would you hurt me?" And
Mm-hmm.
the fox is like, "Of course I would hurt you. Of course you would hurt me. Of course we would hurt each other because hurting each other." The possibility of hurting each other is the very condition that you need to find love, or like need to find deeper bond to
Yeah.
to to find something that's very intimate, very special, very compassionate. You have to risk kind of being out there and being hurt. So sometimes we are too scared to open ourselves up to possibilities. But I would say
Do it.
that risk of that, just do it. That risk of hurt will always be there. So
Yeah.
it's rather you take the chance and find something new and meaningful than just, because when you don't open up, the only thing you listen to is yourself, and it gets
Mm-hmm.
tiring.
I
So
agree
it kind of
100%. Yeah. So then, Sajid, with this, I think our time is up actually.
yep,
I would like
I took a
to
lot of your
thank
time.
you. No, I mean it was really fun, and I think a topic like this you cannot just put it all together. I mean we both tried, and but yeah, we need probably more sessions, and I hope that I will have more speakers like you who have the courage and they show the bravery to actually step up to speak about their own vulnerabilities, their own problems, and be so open about it to the world. And so everybody can take something from this. I'm very, very positive about it. So thank you once again. And of course, you know that I am there.
Thank you for
So
your time.
just
Thank you
a
for your
WhatsApp
time.
message away
Thank you for
whenever you
this.
need me.
Yep.
And also, I will be posting this video again on the different platforms so people can access it. And just to have the sum up of the session, you can reach me or you can reach to Sajid on from his profile. If there is anything any one of us can do to help each other out, we will be there. And with this, I would like to wish a wonderful week ahead for you and also a wonderful start of the week to everybody around the world. So yeah, I'm sending you lots of love and hugs, and we'll catch up outside this session.
Love you too.
And
I'll
thank
see
you
you
everybody
soon.
for
Bye bye.
joining. Bye.
Bye bye. Take care.
Ciao.